So today we're going to be taking Ted apart to fix his blinking problem. We have sent the board away. We got the board back. There were some issues with the transistor for Ted, so that's all been repaired. We are now going to take Ted apart and replace the small coil that activates his eyelids up. Last time we believe the transistor was shorted. That was making the solenoid engage and burn. We think the solenoid's okay, but we're going to replace it anyway. We thought we'd show you how to take Ted apart. So because this machine has side blades, we are putting our handy dandy side blade protectors in first, just so we do not ruin the beautiful side blades on this amazing machine. Then we're going to pull the playfield out. We're going to remove Ted's hat. There's a screw right on top. His hat comes off. There's a screw on either side of his face that lets us pull the face mask off. And there's also a back to his head. Let me just get out of the way here now that these are in place, and we'll show you more in a minute. Now the protectors are in place, we're going to pull the playfield back so that we can actually get to Ted's head. Alright, so it just comes out, it locks, and we remove the one screw, and his little hat comes right off. So that's easy. And here we are, beautiful Ted without his hat. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen these two Phillips screws. This side is relatively easy. This side is a bit more difficult. But if you do it by hand with just using a Phillips bit, you can usually loosen it enough to be able to pull his face right off. Now, of course, the back comes off as well. And this is the same for Rudy's Funhouse. Also the same for Red here if you wanted to take her apart. So there, his face just came off. Now we're going to loosen these two Phillips screws. I think this one's already loose. And we're going to remove the back portion of his head. And it should sort of snap out. Might actually have to take that screw out. Yeah, you have to take
the ramp out here.
Or you can take that screw right out. There you go.
And then this one needs some loosening. There you go. Well done.
Okay. Ted is now faceless, hatless, and is ready to go. So what we're going to be doing next, we have to remove the Dozer blade so that the head can slide underneath through the hole in the playfield. And that's going to mean we have to also, there's a C-clamp holding the blade on, and then there is this metal piece that is a spacer. Both of those have to come out before Ted's mechanism can drop through the playfield. So he is trying to get the C-clamp off with some needle nose pliers. Which can be tricky. We're also going to be taking the ramp out here. This ramp will come out because we have to sort of get down in this area easily. So we're probably going to be taking this ramp out, or sorry, this, yeah, the metal ramp. The plastic ramp sort of comes out. It comes all the way down here, so we'll remove these 2 screws. There's a few screws that are holding it in place. Then we can remove that whole thing. That gives us more room to work. So in order to kind of help us get these parts done, we're going to take this ramp off right now. So there's the 2 ramp screws we're going to remove, and again, you should have a metal tin like that to put your parts in on the playfield so you don't lose them. I'll move this over here. Very nice. There's the 2 small screws that are very finely threaded that remove the ramp flap, and that's a Phillips screwdriver. This ramp comes around. There's a diverter here as well that pokes through the playfield that we've repaired. And then of course the ramp goes down there. So these 2 little screws right there and there. This is probably the 4th or 5th time we've taken Ted apart. First time took about 6 hours, I think, because we didn't know what we were doing. It's a little easier now. Okay, so the ramp flap screws come out. Go on the tray. We now have that taken. There's 2 here. We have to remove this ramp from the plastic. So this ramp comes out. It's got a nut here, and then it kind of pulls out.
Part I could order too, eh?
So that that nut comes off. We need to then remove these 2 nuts, which will let us pull out the ramp. The ramp often gets cracked, and you can see this one has a crack on it. Now we might want to remove her hat as well, just to get more room inside there. And then use our extender magnet to find the lost screws. Okay, so here's our magnet on a stick. Just found the one that we lost. And you can see now this mechanism just kind of moves right out of the way. Now, there's 2 more screws here if we want to remove the whole mechanism. But I think, sorry, that was my finger in the way. I think we're okay. So let's just pull Red's hat off. Then that just, ouch, makes it a little easier for us to navigate around. There are 2 more screws down here on this ramp flap that we need to take out. And then that ramp should come out. So there, her hat's off. Again, gives us a little more room. Just removing the last of the 2 ramp screws down there. Now this is, again, connected here, but it's given us the latitude to remove it there. And keeping in mind, there's a diverter mechanism that needs to be pulled back to be able to wiggle the ramp out of the way. I'll hold this up. Now we can also take these off. There, let's take these off. Get these out. Now there's lots of little wires holding switches and things on this ramp. You can disconnect them underneath, or you can just kind of move it out of the way. I think we opt to move them out of the way. There are plugs underneath if you wanted to unplug it though. But that gives us plenty of room. We also removed these 2 screws that let us take this plastic piece off, again making it easier to get to that particular C-clamp. This side is a lot more difficult. We don't disassemble all of the ramps and whatnot on this side. We usually can get to it if we try hard enough. So there's the C-clamp that I was able to remove from that side of the Dozer blade. I'm going to try to get to this one now. Okay, so we got both C-clamps off. We're now able to remove the Dozer blade. Slips over there, slips over there. Now, before you do anything else, what we need to do is to disconnect the Dozer blade mechanism here. There's a spring underneath, so this whole mechanism can come up. So we need to now raise the playfield, remove the spring, and then the whole Dozer assembly can come up. Under here, this is the Dozer motor. Sorry, I'm really messing up. Here's the mechanism and the spring. We're just going to take that spring off. Right at the top. And it just sort of slips up and off, and he can take it right out of there. We'll put that in our little jar. Now this whole mechanism, when we put the playfield back, the Dozer blade should lift right out. With that whole mechanism in place. Okay, so there you go. Now with the Dozer out, we're left with having to remove these monsters. Now when we put them back in, we did them only finger tight. Sorry for my bad band-aid on my thumb. That was a metal ramp injury that I got yesterday. So these should be put back in semi-tight, but if you ever have to fix them again, you know, you're stuck with trying to get it out of there. So again, we put them back in mostly finger tight. They don't get a lot of torque. I mean, it's just a plastic Dozer blade that's on there. I don't know what happened there. Focus. Anyway, we'll show you what happens when we get those out. All right, so with both of those Dozer mechanisms or spacers out, his head is now clear to be removed from the bottom of the playfield. So we have to put the playfield up now, and we'll show you what happens under there. There's a number of things that have to be removed from underneath the playfield. His jaw being one of them, his jaw mechanism, and we'll show you kind of what's going on under here. Okay, so here's his jaw. You can see it's like, hi, my name is Ted. So this whole mechanism needs to be removed. We have to remove the trough here. We have to remove the Dozer blade motor. And we also have to remove part of this, this kicker. Once we've done that, Ted comes right out. So we're just gonna start, I'll show you afterwards. We kind of start on the motor first and remove the cam that runs his jaw. I'm not gonna show you him unscrewing the whole thing. We'll be back. It's important too. Once you take the mechanism off for his jaw, you've got to twist it so that you can disengage his jaw cam, and it's a bit tricky because you can see right here, it's not focusing very well. The cam only comes out one way, and you have to kind of twist it to be able to get it to come out. So there, we disconnected the cam. You can see it's keyed, and then you take some wire wraps and just tie this piece up out of the way so the wires don't take a pounding. So that's the first of 4 things that need to be replaced before you can remove Ted's head. Okay, so with the jaw out of the way, we can now remove the ramp. This is the ball ramp that Ted uses when he swallows the ball. There's, I think, 4 screws that are on there, plus a switch that is got a connector that you can disconnect, and you can take the trough off. Part number 2. So we took the ramp right out. There it is. Disconnected it, and we're just going to set it aside. So now you can kind of see it's getting easier to get to the 4 screws that let you bring Ted out through the playfield. Unfortunately, the motor for the Dozer blade has to come out as well. And then we have to remove this mechanism to be able to pull them right through. So we're going to remove the Dozer motor and just tie it up like we did with the mouth motor. All right, so we took the motor off. We tied it up over here. So we just have this to take care of right now. This is kind of a little awkward because you have to get to those couple of screws underneath to take off this whole piece, which is a diverter, and make sure that you remember where everything goes. We also lost our nut already, so we got to find our lost nut. So there's 4 screws that are underneath here. You can see there's 2 here, 2 on the other side. That diverter mechanism, and we're just tying it up and getting it out of the way. And now you can see Ted is unobstructed. Now, I believe Rudy is very similar, although he doesn't have the blade motor, that's for sure. Anyway, it's just a method of being methodical, removing the obstacles, and then removing the, in this case, 3 screws that hold them in. There was not a 4th one, I don't know why. And then we'll show you, because that's the eye solenoid right there. That pops through the bottom, and you can see it's kind of melted. I can't really get you to see it, but. All right, we're taking Ted out now. That's just a number of those screws, and you'll see how you can then just carefully remove him and his mechanism through the playfield. Of course, there's always
This screw is troublesome.
one trouble screw.
Being difficult. That might be slipping.
All right, well, we'll get that out of there and bring it over to the bench. One thing we didn't do, we have to go back and do it. You have to remove those screws that hold his face and the back of his head on, or it won't slide through the playfield. So we're just going to remove those, and then he should slide right through. So that's it. That's it as far as getting him out. You can see here's the coil that we're going to change. That does his eyes open, and then we're going to reinstall her. So, oh yeah, there's the back of it, of course. There's a bunch of solenoids, one here. This is for his eyes right and left. This is for his eyes closed, and that one down there is for eyes open. And it's not easy to get to either, so we'll see you soon. So we got the, after messing around with wires and whatnot, we got the new coil put in place. What's interesting is you got to make sure the spring is in the right orientation. You have to remember there's a washer that goes over the plunger. You have to make sure that the mechanism gets put in properly at the same time. So you've got the eyelids closed, eyelids open. The eyelids have to go back into their little washers here. And of course the eyeballs fall out, so we have to put those in next, but we're getting there. All right, so after much cursing and fumbling around and making things in the right place and getting the eyeballs set, and we've replaced the coil. The old one was burnt and not in very good shape. We also repaired the WPC driver board because there were some transistors that were messed up. Anyway, so all of that, and now we just have to find a couple of little tie wraps and fix the tie wraps around here. And I think we're in good shape. You can kind of test them. Eyes are closed. When you push the flange back, the eyelids will open, or should open. So it's hard to do with one hand, but you can see there. Oh, there we go. Ah, hi, I'm Ted. Rah, rah. So eyes open, eyes wide. Those are the two coil stops for this. It's like, ah, oh, oh, oh. Okay. Okay, so now it's basically doing the reverse to put them back in the hole and then to test them. So we'll spare you the reinstallation, but it's basically the reverse of what we did. Reassembling, again, you know, kind of doing it in the opposite way. Here's his, we put the ramp back on. Now we're gonna put this assembly, we have to reattach this. Then we do the motor, and again, the motor is part of the dozer, so we have to make sure we put the dozer back on so that unit comes through with the spring, and then his mouth. This gets a little tricky just because you've got to be able to get the cam in the right place. So once you've done this, we've done this 5 times now, so we're getting better at it. So it's really, this was a big issue, was the dozer blade. So you take the blade, you take the cam piece that goes, you put it through there first. It only goes in one way. Then you feed it down the hole, like so. It goes down there, and we'll put the spring on it afterwards. And then we can line up the dozer blade, but I think we need to put in those spacers first, but we can do it. We can do it right after. Anyway, this took a while to figure this out. First, we're going to want to put those dozer blade spacers back in, the ones that were really hard to get out. There's one on either side. You can see right there. So we're gonna put those in and tighten them by hand, and then maybe just give it a little bit more of a tighten with a hair needle nose, but nothing more than that. So here's the dozer blade assembly. It's put back together. We've got it in there properly. We have the spacers put in. We're going to take the dozer blade cam, drop it through the hole, and then attach the dozer blade to each of the spacers on either side, and then we put the seat clamps back on and the spring underneath onto the motor, and that's the dozer blade put back on. So Ted is all back assembled. The last part was putting the spring back on. So this spring basically holds the cam that makes the bulldozer blade go up or down, and that's the motor for that. So it's all back together. We don't have any extra screws. All right, here's Ted. Let's see if we can wake him up.
Time to go to work. Let's fire that thing up.
Oh, there he's awake. Woohoo! All right, another Viper Pinball Restoration Garage restoration.